Okay, this is the third video. Once I get going, I usually make a good lot of videos, so sit back and relax. What I said I would discuss in this video is what mixed connective tissue disease is. Basically, some people say it's your body has too many antibodies and therefore it acts like your body has a disease and it attacks that disease, and which results in disease, which is funny, I know, but I kind of like to look at it as the mixed connective tissue disease reminds me of somebody who just got a transplant, and they're very immune to, like catching a cold, catching the flu could kill them because their body is weak. So I view mixed connective tissue disease as your body rejecting a new organ. To me, it's the same principle. Your body's saying, you don't belong here, I have to get rid of you. And what happens is, that results in either you getting sick or you dying. And I'm sorry I can't sugarcoat this, because that's basically what it comes down to. Your body is killing you. What starts out as a minor war becomes a big Armageddon, so to speak. And that's what's happening to my body. It started with maybe the epilepsy, I don't know, maybe that had an early thing. I can't remember, I think my cousin had seizures, my cousin Junior, who was passed away, and I think he had the grandma's. I've only remembered him having one seizure one time, and, back then it was put the spoon in the mouth to keep him from biting his tongue. Well, now we know that's not the case, but back then that was the recommendation. So, maybe it was a genetic thing, maybe it was a mixed connective tissue disease. That was the first thing I remember having. But now what's funny is that I also remember when I was given plasma, they told me that I had the RSV virus when I was a baby, which basically it's a virus that young babies get, and back in the 1960s, 1970s, they usually died from it. This was usually a death sentence. But my body developed enough antibodies to fight it off. Now, where did these antibodies come from? But I didn't think of it at the time. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. I have these the antibodies that are fighting this off, when they first told me. I said, that's good, And then I had that, and then, I reached the age of 30. I had 3 kids by this time, and was doing pretty good. I had just left my ex-husband, and I was working, everything was going fine. And then one night I went to bed, everything was normal, and I woke up the next morning, and it was my food stamp day, so I went to get my food stamps out of the mail, and I remember getting out of bed, and I walked to the top of the stairs, and I collapsed. And I'm still not thinking anything of it. I'm like, okay, well, maybe something, I don't know, maybe I'm exhausted or whatever. So I got my food stamps, and me and my friend headed to the store. And I get in the store, and I just could not push the buggy. I just could not do it, and I felt like I was going to pass out. And I grabbed what I could, and I went back to the car. I said, we need to take these groceries home. I need to go to the hospital. So she's like, are you sure? I said, yeah. So we took the food back home, and I go to the hospital, and they ran some tests, and they said, well, your white blood cell count is a little high, and maybe you have pneumonia. It looks like that might be the case, but you're so bad, we're going to keep you. So they put me in the hospital, gave me some antibiotics, and I seemed to improve, so they sent me home. Well, 2 days later, I was right back to where I was before. And I kept going back, and I kept saying asthma, and this and that, and did all kinds of tests, and, they basically just kept sending me home with more pills, more drugs. Nothing helped, so finally I went back to the emergency room. And once again, they went through the drill, and they started to send me home, and I looked at my friend and I said, please, you've got to pray or something, because I said, if I go home, I'm going to die. And so I get home, or I don't get home. The doctor at the hospital walked in, and for some reason, she had finally listened to me, and she said, you said it's worse when you walk. And I said, yes. So she had me go to the bathroom and come back, and my saturation went from 100 to 40. And they both, her and the nursing assistant turned white, and she said, you know what, no, you're not going home. And she ran a CAT scan, and that's when they found the glassy substance over my lungs. And I was in the hospital. They did a lung biopsy where they actually opened my back and took out a piece of my lung and set it off. But needless to say, long story short, I got the appropriate antibiotics. My doctor walked in and said, you have a greater chance of being hit by a Greyhound bus. Go home and enjoy your life. So I did. Everything was good. I mean, here I am once again. My life was going good. I was like, And then I started getting pain when I would, I'd become paralyzed sometimes. And I went to the hospital, the doctor, and they said, well, it looks like your body is developing osteoarthritis. And they said we could see the bone degenerate, it's going to degenerate, and you're going to proceed to lose some of your ability and all that. And I was like, okay. And once again, I was still feeling all right. I just had moments where I was in pain or I'd be unable to walk, and I was like, all right, that's, But in between all this, I did notice that I was developing the inability to swallow. If I ate something, it would be like I was choking, and there was a couple times I almost did choke. And so all these things were mounting up, and, but everybody was still like, well, you age, your body loses some of its flexibility, you get, most people do get their bones slowly starting to deteriorate and all that, so it's not uncommon, we'll just watch it and keep you on pain meds if we have to, and that was the end of that. And then, like I said, May of 2011, I started developing. I was volunteering at that time, and I went to get on the bus, and I remember I coughed, and I kind of said, I just need a drink. It was one of those coughs, it wasn't anything major, it was just like a small, and you just kind of take a drink, and yeah, I felt better. So I go to the volunteer place, and halfway through, I start sweating profusely, and I'm like, I told the lady, I said, I just don't feel well. So they thought, okay, maybe she just needs to sit down, maybe get a bite to eat. She'll be all right. And sure enough, I ate, and I did feel better. I said, I think I'm good to go home. So I went home, and then the sharpness in my chest came. And I was having trouble turning on my side, all this. And that's when I went to my doctor, and she said, well, it could be your interstitial lung disease, or it could be something else. And then she took her her stethoscope, and listened to me, and said, you've never heard of irregular heartbeat with you before. So she said, I want to do an echo. So they did the echo like a week or two later, and it came back, and the doctor said, this is consistent with pulmonary hypertension. Which everybody still wants to argue with me about this, because there's people who don't think that 40 is that high, and therefore it doesn't classify as pulmonary hypertension. So, they said, okay, we believe this is what it is, and I wasn't getting any better, and it was going to be a little bit of time before I could get in to see the cardiologist, at least a month. So the doctor said, if you can't wait, go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, and like I said, they ran the test and did the antibody thing, and they came back and said, you have mixed connective tissue disease. And this will slowly shut your organs down, or your muscles, or your bones. Generally speaking. I'll be right back.